Hello friends, I hope this video finds you in a good health. My name is Jov and this is Tesorian Development Screencast. So far we have completed the sign up, and once we are signed up, we are opening the timeline, and currently the timeline is empty. So with this video we are gonna start working on the actual timeline, which is basically a place where we'll be able to see posts not only from ourselves but also from people that we follow. And that's sort of the concept that I'm having in my head. I don't have too much plan before, but that's in a nutshell what we are gonna be doing. So why don't we just start? So I was thinking whether we should start with a UI test for the timeline that will eventually pass once we are done with the business logic, but I think it wouldn't make too much sense because I couldn't really write a thorough test that's gonna that's gonna, well, like I can, for example, write a test that, for example, when I sign up I can see an empty timeline, and the timeline is sort of shows some message that like there is no posts yet, and then you can tap something to some concept like that, like tap here to add post or whatever. But I'm thinking that okay, afterwards I'll have to switch back to the business logic and then complete that one, and only then go back to the UI tests and again do some adjustments there. So I was thinking maybe instead of doing that switch, just start with a business logic right away and then move on to the UI and the UI tests afterwards. So let's see where we are. Here first I would like to show that I've done there are these two commits where I am doing actually some updates, because this week there was Google I/O, and Compose got into beta 7, and there were some other updates. The studio that we were using, the Arctic Fox, got into beta as well. It was Canary before. So yeah, there were some updates, and I've also updated meanwhile the readme of the project, where I have included some of the libraries that we ended up adding in the project. So yeah, those are just two commits that I've added. And now if I open the readme, let me enter presentation mode. Here, as we can see, for the timeline, we have a plan to basically be able to post stuff and then see posts, from us and from friends. And basically I think that's gonna be the first thing we're gonna be working on, and then posting probably will be later, because it's easier to start with something like, okay, pull something, and then actually focus on the on adding things. So that's gonna be the readme. And so for the timeline, I think what we can start off with, I just want to outline some things that I'm having in my head as to what to start off with first, and then I would like to actually outline some tests that I'm gonna start writing. So basically, well, when we get into the timeline, we have a user, and the user has an ID. So basically we should be able to, like, based on that ID, to fetch the posts that that user has, like let's say the last 20, and they should be ordered, let's say chronologically, but from the latest one, so that as they were happening. So for example, the newest should be on top, and then so on. And also it should include the posts from friends. So let's say at first we can start with something very simple, like when the timeline is empty and we have no friends, like the timeline should be empty, so we should get no posts. So let's say no posts, and then what happens when there are some posts, and then whether, like, we want to also see posts from friends. So I think that's good enough to just get started. and see how that's gonna go. So before that, let me... So yeah, I've updated the README as well here. So let's actually amend the last commit. And here I'm gonna have included that one as well. So now I'm clean and I can start off by writing a test. So here, I'm gonna go ahead and create a package. I'll name it timeline. And I can start off with a new test. And I'll name this load posts test. So, why load post test? So I'm thinking the timeline is sort of more than just for example, I should be able later on, we're gonna have profiles like the actual users. I am a user, my friends are gonna be users, and when we enter somebody's profile, we should be able to only fetch those posts. But in the timeline, I should be able to see combination of posts, so mine and from the people I follow. So that's why I'm thinking right now for the timeline, just to load. I'm starting with like loading the post that should include everything, and then later on I'll see how everything goes, and we might come up with something different about when I open somebody's profile. We'll definitely reuse things, but yeah, I don't want to think too much about that. Just start simple and see how everything goes. So as I said, first we can start off with a test, and I'll name this so what happens when there are no posts available. So let me import this. So I'm gonna have a view model, just similar to the sign up. So basically they're gonna be a view model that will be sort of exposing state to the UI, and the UI will be rendering those states, and it will consume events from the UI, for example, to fetch something. So in case of like after signing up, I have a user and the user has an ID, so I should be able to fetch by ID. So there should be a view model that will be allowing me to do that, and that view model most probably will be called timeline view model. It makes sense to me. And it would expose state that will be named, let's say, timeline state posts empty list, let's say. So I should have posts event, and it's gonna be empty initially. That's gonna be my view model. Timeline state value. The timeline state is gonna be live data that will be exposed towards the UI. So that's my assertion. I think it looks fine. And then my view model is going to be a timeline view model. And a timeline view model, let's create a class. I'll extract it to separate file right away. It's gonna be in my friends.timeline, but here instead I should use the production package. I'll move it on the other side. And now that's my view model, it's a value. Let's maybe split this so we can see it better, like that. And let's actually timeline state, create this class into separate file. That's gonna be in my timeline state. And that should be also in the production package, and that's gonna be a sealed class. And then let's create these posts. And this empty list, I think, because we want to be able to when I emerge the code, I want the types to get right. I'll say post here. And now we don't know what is a post, so let's basically create a post. I think I could have started, you know, as I've done with the sign up, to start working with primitives, with strings, for example. But as I said previously, it's gonna be a little bit more painful to do the refactoring in order to get rid of the primitive obsession afterwards. So I just right away want to start with a domain model that's gonna represent the post, and that's why I want to do it right now, because I don't want to deal with primitive obsession later on. So now the concept of the post is gonna be something simple. Let's create it. So it's gonna be in my domain. We have domain user, then we are gonna have domain posts. Is it users or okay, then let's name it post. So the post is gonna be a data class. And now this is gonna be, the post is gonna have post ID. It's gonna be string. It's gonna have a user ID, the user who posted that. Because a post can have only one owner, it couldn't have like multiple owners. So it can be related only to like one user can have a post. And then the actual post text is gonna be, let's say, come on, string as well. And then when did it happen, the actual timestamp. It's gonna be long. So I was playing a little bit before, and I think maybe it would have been better if I used local date time here, but the problem is with local date time that I couldn't use it on APIs on Android before O. So I'll have to come up with some third-party libraries. I wouldn't really like that, so I think simple long will do, and then I will format the long as the way we want it. So now we have the post. I think that's done. Now let's create these posts. So it's gonna be in the timeline state. This is gonna be val posts. Yeah, that's gonna be also data class that will derive from the timeline state, like that. And we no longer need this. And now finally in the ViewModel, let's create the timeline state, which is this one. It's gonna be a live data timeline state, mutable timeline state. And then this one's gonna be a property that will be actually equal to mutable live data, something like this. Let's make it a bit smaller so we can see it. So yeah, I have a property that I can read and a private one that I can mutate here internally. And ultimately here in the test, what we can do, what we have to do is do the call to actually get the actual timeline. So ViewModel.timeline for let's say and it's gonna be a user which has a ID. Well, I think I don't really need all of this. Let's start simple first. Something like that. Just to define the API. Later on we can think about users, but for now I think this is just gonna be enough. So create member function, user ID, and that's the function of the view model. I think now the test is okay. Let's now run all the tests and see this one fail. And see if it fails for the right reason. It says not implemented, which seems reasonable to me because indeed it is not implemented. And now we can rerun to see that actual value is null. And it is. So what we can do to fix this one is we can do here the mutable timeline state value is timeline state posts empty list. So we're just hard coding, like this is called fake it till you make it. Of course now it is failing because of the looper, so basically in the test we have to extend this one with an instant task execution executor extension. And now if I run it passes. So back to what I was saying is like what I've done here is we call fake it till you make it. So basically the test is expecting something, and what we do, we just quickly hard code what it expects to make it green. And once we have a green test, we are free to do whatever we want here in the production code. So now, for example, there is nothing I can start refactoring because I don't know where this is gonna go. I don't see how the algorithm would evolve. And in order to understand how everything's gonna evolve, I need more tests. That's called triangulation. I need more tests to actually probe different input and see different output so that I can see how the algorithm's gonna evolve. And in order to do that, I need to write more tests. And once I understand how the algorithm evolves, then I can do some more refactoring and I can start emerging some design and that kind of things. So let's first see where we are. So we have a post, we have the timeline state. Let's check this in. Can fetch posts for a user ID. Can fetch empty collection of posts for user ID. So that's pretty much specific because I can only fetch empty regardless on the actual user. And now let's go ahead and write another one, which is if we go back here, some posts available. So what we can do, we can we can name this one what happens when I have posts available. So when I have posts available, I would expect a timeline state posts. I would say team post. That's gonna be my view model. timeline state value. So what is theme posts? Theme posts is gonna be a list of, let's say, a post that will have post ID. Then I think I'll say theme ID. Theme is gonna be a user that I'll have, and then the text doesn't matter. Let's say post text, and let's say 1L. The timeline, the time doesn't really matter. So let's also create a view model. View model is gonna be timeline view model. And then what is theme? Theme is a user with theme ID. Theme at friends.com about theme. So now the action should be view model timeline for theme ID. Let's watch this one fail. Yes, so we are expecting a post, but we are getting an empty. We're getting an empty list of posts. So what we can do here, we can say if the user ID equals theme ID, we are gonna do something here, else do the old thing. And then this thing here is again, fake it till you make it. So yeah, I think I can just copy this, and I can say here posts is list of posts, and instead of theme ID here, I'll say theme ID, and then the mutable timeline state value is gonna be a timeline state posts, and then pass the posts, and that should make the test green, and it does. So let's also check this one in. Can fetch posts for given user ID as long as the user ID is theme ID. So it's clear now that I can only fetch if the user ID is theme. And I would like to make a little cleanup now, not here in the production code, because in the production code I still don't know where I am, but here I'm creating a user, and all I need from the user is basically the user ID. So the email and the about are totally irrelevant here in this particular test and the test case itself. So I want to be able to create a user, but like I want it to be like painless in a way. So I don't really want to expose these details. So all I need is the theme ID. So I want to be able to create a user only passing the ID. So one way to do this, and because now I need it only the tests, I need that to be supported. I need to be supported only in the tests, and I think we touched that previously in the previous in some of the previous episodes. One way to do that is to create a builder for the user. So let's actually create here a class. I'll move it later. A user builder. So here, so I want to be able to say that theme is equal to a user dot with ID, then pass the ID that I want to customize, and then say dot build. Easy as that. I don't want to use DSLs. I don't want to complicate the things. I just want simple API with dot dot dot. If you have different preference, you can do whatever you want for your builders, but I want my builders to be like that. So what I can do here is I can do a companion object, because I want to have a function that I can call as a static method on a user builder. So a function that should be called a user, it would return user builder. So here I would just return user builder. And then, so here I would need the user ID, which is gonna be a string. I think I'm just gonna pass some default values. Let's say, I don't know, UUID random to string. Then I need an user email, which is gonna be also string. Is well, I think this is not really needed. The type user@friends.com, and about user is gonna be about user. So those are default values, and then I should be able to customize those. So I need to expose some functions like so. So I want to be able to say team is a user. Let's say user builder a user, so I can import the builder, and then say with ID, then pass this build. That's it. That's what I want. So this is team 1, right? So with ID, I need a member function in the builder, and I will return the builder. So let's actually move the function below here, and eventually I'll need a build function that will return user. So the build function will return a user with user ID, user email, and about user. And here I would say the equals this, apply user ID equals ID. For now I don't need this other email and about, so I need only the ID to be able to alter it. So this with ID is gonna be enough. And now if I run, I should be still, that everything should be still there. Posts available is not working because, let's see, what did I break? Oh yes, with ID instead of email, that's what I should be passing. Nice. So I can basically get rid of this, and now this one looks better. So actually let's move this one outside. So I'll move it. I need it for now only the tests, so I'll leave it in the tests, in the test package. But instead of timeline, I would say, let's say infrastructure builder, and that's gonna be in the tests only. That's my builder, and here I can import this one. And now this reads to my taste really good. So I would say team is a user with ID built, and that's it. Now the team posts is a list of posts where I have team ID and then all this other data. I'll deal with that later, but for now, because this data is important now for the post, But basically, yeah, that's it, just these two. And then I act, and then I have this assertion. And maybe just make it a little bit smaller and then see if I can feed this in one line. I like it better when it is in one line. All right. And here I can leave it like this, or I can also create a user. Yeah, I think at this moment I don't really need to create a user, but just to make, maybe to align those two tests, like, I don't know. Yeah, I think for now I'll just leave it. Let's see where I am. What I've done is created a user builder that allows us to create users with only relevant data. And yeah, so now next, I think we can continue with a test where we want to also see posts from friends. So assert equals timeline state posts. Let's say now we have, let's say, I don't know, Lucy posts. That's gonna be my ViewModel timeline state value. The ViewModel is timeline ViewModel. When I do ViewModel timeline 4, and I want to say here, I wanna fetch timeline for a user that follows Lucy. The user might not have posts, but Lucy will have posts, and this user doesn't have posts but should be able to see the posts from the friend they follow, because this test will actually make sure that the other posts are also loaded, the ones from themselves, from the actual user. Timeline for, let's say, yeah, I think I would do Anna ID. Now let's create those. Anna's gonna be a user with ID Anna ID build, and then Lucy posts local variable is gonna be list of let's say a post post 1. That's gonna be the one. I'm thinking about chronologically ordering them. So on the 0 position should be the one that was created afterwards. So post 2, and this is Lucy ID, and then post 2, and this happened, let's say, yesterday, which is, let's say, 1L. So smaller timestamp, then the higher the higher the timestamp, the later it means. So I can even, yeah. Okay, so let's continue. Let's say, and the second post is gonna be post 1. Again, the Lucy ID, then the post 1, and that happened. So this is, let's say, 2L, this is 1L. So the higher the L, it means the later it happened. So this one, let's say, happened after the first one. So yeah, they are sort of ordered well. And then let's create Lucy. So Lucy is also gonna be a user with ID Lucy ID, and then build. Let's run and watch this fail. So it fails, saying that the post from the friends is empty. So what we can do here again is if the user ID equals Anna ID, else continue with the other thing that was there, user ID. And now here, again, I'll just borrow this while posts, and then do this. Then Lucy ID. And if I run, it should work. What's the problem? No posts available. Oh yeah, because yeah, here we have Anna. So let's maybe do this. I don't know. Yeah. So I think now we're fine. I had to change here to Tom because I need just variety of data. Now this one works. Let's check this in. Can fetch, can load posts from friends from a friend as long as the ID, as long as the user in question is an ID. So if it's an ID, I can fetch the posts from Lucy, and so I'm just now there is actually no relation why Anna can see the post from Lucy. So here in the test, it is not clear that Anna, for example, follows Lucy, and then Lucy has these posts, and then why Anna can see this. So there is no this following, there is no this membership here, but that should be something that will evolve. So we will have to make sure that here in this test we explicitly say that Anna follows Lucy, and then that's why Anna can see the post from Lucy. So that's something we will have to do. But here actually we see now we see at least some pattern how these things are going to evolve. So what we can do, we can start refactoring, and the way to refactor is basically to start pushing this data up the call stack. Basically, up the call stack means towards whoever is calling the view model, which is in this case the test. So we can see also this duplication between the data. So here in the test and here in the production code, we have this duplication of the data. So what we want to do is we want to keep data up the call stack. We want to keep abstractions down the call stack. So we have to start pushing this data towards the tests, and then here we're gonna have some nice abstractions that we'll see how everything evolves. So that's gonna be something of the refactoring that we will start doing, but that's gonna be happening in the next episode because this one goes already for some 40 minutes. So yeah, I think this is a good start of the timeline. I'm getting excited to start working on this, and I think it's gonna be even more interesting when we get into more sort of when we start digging deeper here. So thank you so much for the time and the attention for this episode. I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Cheers!